Just Business with Steve Thomas and John Worrell. And now, here's your host, Chris Leary.
Hello and welcome to It's Just Business on the Hogstide Network, the show where we look at the dollars and cents of the sports, business, media, industrial complex, churning them in and churning them out. I am joined by my co-host, Steve. Steve, how you doing today?
Oh, just doing awesome, man. I'm hovering in my house in a chemical warfare suit with a gas mask on at all times because I am terrified I'm going to be dead in less than 24 hours due to the ravage of the Black Plague, meaning the coronavirus that is currently scouring our country. So.
Hazmat suit. Is that I'm looking at him on the video monitor right now in the full yellow garb.
Yeah, if you can tell, I'm being a bit facetious, people. Stop panicking. It's okay. It'll be okay, I promise. No, everything's good. You know, this is always one of the better times of the year because we're heading into the free agency period, and then the draft is right around the corner. It's the only time of the year when Redskins fans really have hope. You know, before they're dashed across the rocks and crushed for a whole year. So this is the time of year. So this is like Redskins Christmas coming up.
That's right. It is our peak season. That is for sure.
Before things just go to absolute hell.
Well, maybe this year will be different.
Yeah, it's a good question. It's, the question is whether Ron Rivera can truly bring in his own thing, or whether just the Redskins' bad Daniel Snyder mojo is going to, ruin his life like it's ruined everybody else's. So, is he mentally strong enough to overcome the bad mojo of the Redskins?
We will see.
Yeah, I know it wasn't really a question meant for an answer because there is no answer.
Yeah, we'll check back on that one in week 13
or week 1. Last year, the team didn't even make it out of week 2 before the season was over, so we'll see.
Oh, Lordy. All right, well, we'll park Riverboat Ron to the side here a little bit, but stay in the world of the National Football League because we seem to be getting closer on whether we will even have a league, and now that's obviously much more hysterical than what is really going on, but are we close to a new labor agreement?
Yes, we are close. So we talked about this last week and went over some of the terms and whatnot. And what has happened now in the status right now is that since the last show, the league reps voted against approving the CBA. However, they sent the entire document out to the players to vote on. And that was 10, 11 days ago on the day we're recording this, which is Sunday. And so the union is in this really weird position. You can tell this is a union run by athletes and not by professionals because the executive committee negotiated this deal quietly out of the press over the last 9 or 10 months, and then they promptly voted against what they negotiated. And so did the union reps. Each team's union rep, but now it kind of looks like the league body, meaning the main voting body, is probably going to approve it. And so the union's going against the recommendation of their own leadership, which voted against what they did. Now the interesting part of this to me is that it looks to me as though if this does not get approved now, meaning in the next few days, that the NFL ownership is going to, A, refuse to negotiate anymore for another year, and B, cause either a strike or a lockout. And so this is sort of like the owners putting the gun to the heads of the players and saying, sign this now or things are going to get dramatically worse. Is that what it seems like to you?
It does seem like that to me. And I don't really... And, it's probably not that surprising to hear that I'm generally a pro-labor guy, and I'm, generally pro-labor here. I don't necessarily know what the NFL Players Association is doing here. The it seems like one of those, what's, I never get the saying right, but it's snatching defeat from the jaws of victory. Yeah,
Yeah.
it seems like that's what's going on. Although I agree with you, I think the rank and file, the general voting body, i.e. the players, will vote pretty strongly for this in the end. And it almost makes me wonder if some of like the arcane rules about the approvals through the leadership and the reps, which people weren't even, the reporting couldn't even be clear on whether how much that even mattered, just in how much weight they had. Steve, I'm sure you probably know, but for a few days that was just even confusing about even what the process was and what the weight of their votes would be. I think in the end, it's a good deal, first of all. So I think, like, you're never going to get the perfect deal, but it's a better deal than they had before. So I think they'd be voting against their own interests to reject it. And, for a league where the average playing years is what, 3.5, right? Something like that? Something ridiculously small. Players aren't going to want to be messing around with looking at a lockout and playing under a season underneath that cloud. So I think that's too much personal risk for the rank and file players to vote against this. So I don't quite know what the league, the Players Association seems wildly unstrategic here in the last 4 weeks after what you have to say has been a pretty good process, and I don't understand why they would wreck their own momentum.
Yeah, I was confused about the voting process also because it seemed like nobody really knew what the answer was. So I went back and I read the NFLPA Constitution, and the Constitution itself is unclear. This is why the media is unclear and why the players themselves are unclear, because the Constitution is unclear. And so what it says, basically, it leaves open the question of whether you need approval of the union reps in order to pass on the approved CBA. It's very unclear. And so what sort of they've just decided is that if the union members approve it, then it's ratified. Because they need to revise their constitution and very clearly spell out, A, the executive committee vote is just a recommendation. B, either the union rep vote is either binding or not binding. And C, do they need the vote of the main union body or not? Because it's very unclear. That's why you're unclear. That's why the media is unclear. So they've just sort of decided that this is what they're doing. Sort of flying by the seat of their pants. To me, I'm usually pro management. That's just kind of typically where I come out on this, on these things normally. But for this deal, I don't know really why the players are upset. I did at first because I thought the idea of not giving everybody a 17th game check is BS. You can't just ask them to play a 17th game and then limit their paycheck to $250,000 a year, because you're taking, that's not equitable for those who are making over more than $250,000. I said a year. I meant a game. But they fixed that. So beyond that, I don't really know what the problem is or why anybody's upset. The split went up. It went from 47 to 48, and it's going to go to 48.5 once they implement 17 games. There's more benefits, more health benefits. Lifetime, let me newsflash here, people. Lifetime health care is never going to happen, ever. They're just not going to do that. It's prohibitively expensive. There's a lot of complicated workers' comp issues that go into that change state by state. Lifetime health care is not realistically on the table. But the health benefits have gotten dramatically better. They're building medical centers now in every city. I guess I really don't understand why on earth anybody would want to vote against this unless you just want to argue about the split. But here's the thing about the split of revenue. If you cause too many problems, the pot of revenue might go down in the form of media and TV contracts. If you bring 2 years of labor angst, you might lose TV money. And so you want to fight to get 50% of less or 48% or more, or 48.5% or more. That seems to me where I am. And you're exactly right. The biggest issue here is, for the rank and file NFL player, they don't want to mess with this. They just want to play and they want to make some money while they have an NFL career. Um, the minimum pay went up. Practice squad pay went up. I don't know what anybody's complaining about. I would definitely vote to approve it if I were a player.
I think, well, one, I almost wonder if there was some. I don't know if I give the NFLPA this much strategic credit, but I almost wonder if there was some cosmetics here of like looking like leadership was mixed on it, because those votes were pretty close too. They weren't like wipeouts against.
Oh yeah, it was like 7-6.
Yeah. And I almost wonder if there's just some optics around looking like we were mixed on it and then letting the rank and file choose and then moving on as planned. So you wonder if there's just some politics there internally in the NFLPA. And then what I think it really does, what was really kind of flared up over the last 7 or 8 days, is it seems to be a little bit of a haves have nots within the players, because your top of the food chain, your quarterbacks, the people that like gobble up a large percentage of a salary cap, are the ones that have been the most vocal speaking out against it, where you've got more down the line, deeper rank and file, back half of the roster types be a little bit more vocal about why they support it. And you have to say, and not just the NFL, all clubhouses have, in terms of labor solidarity, sports unions are pretty good about players not bashing other players' salaries. Like, they seem to be pretty smart about that sort of high tide lifts all boats type of mentality. But this, to me, is a little bit of a crack in that. And so you see the Russell Wilsons of the world who, whose contracts, gobble up, I have at my fingertips, is probably in the neighborhood of like 15% of the total salary cap.
Yes.
Be the one, and so I think you see a little bit of a clapback from the deeper parts of the roster around like, hey guys, come on, you get so much, and you're gonna be whiny here. It's not lost on me that you have like a Nick Sundberg, battling the top of the food chain quarterbacks here. So that to me has been a bit of an interesting look in sort of like the inner clubhouse politics of salaries and the membership.
Oh yeah, because most unions don't have this disparity.
Right.
You're talking about Russell Wilson making what, $25 million a year, whatever his number is. I don't have it off the top of my head, but it's in that ballpark. And then he's telling some dude making $585,000 a year to vote against, continuing with his livelihood. And so yeah, there's definitely a have or have not. I mean, most labor unions are within a reasonable scope. I mean, certainly there's differences, but there's not thousands and thousands of percent difference, in salaries. But I think it is giving them too much credit for being that strategic about it. Remember, these are people who voted on and approved a union constitution that is not clear as to how to, approve a CBA. So, and you're talking about, let's face it, football players. We've interviewed a lot of them on the show. We've never come across one I thought was just dumb. But they're out there. But even, despite that, these guys aren't business people. They're not full-time union reps. These are football players at the end of the day. So this is not their thing. It is D. Smith's thing. D. Smith needs to be the one to sort of lead them through the wilderness, I think. But I do think this is the first time I've seen sort of a crack in the solidarity. That's a good point I think you make. Because every other CBA, it seems like the players have been united. And this is the one time they haven't. But I think you're giving them way too much credit if you think that this is them being strategic. I think it's them just being mixed up and not negotiating well, frankly.
Yes, and especially at the 1 yard line, so to speak, because you could make a case that D. Smith is actually, like in many ways they've got. I mean, if they're a year out ahead of this, it does set up better TV contracts. It is unquestionably a better deal for the players than the one that they've worked on. So and is more forward looking on a lot of issues for them going forward. So again, it's just like, okay. Which I think is exactly going to happen in a month from now. All anyone's going to be talking about is new TV contracts and labor peace. So, there's always hiccups in these things. And I think, and the 24-hour news cycle, et cetera, make it more of a story. I think by the time we start training camps open, the dominant narrative will be how great this is. The NFL is moving forward with labor peace, new TV deals, et cetera, et cetera. Which is also another interesting thing is there's players right now whose careers are in flux, and they need new CBAs to sign new deals to know where they're going. So like it really does affect, none of, what free agency is going to kick off here in a couple weeks, right? So
Yeah, 18th.
so rank and file, and plenty of rank and file players who are stars, are going to need that certainty here in the next couple weeks to know about where their career is going, let alone over the next couple of years.
Yeah, and for the benefit of the public there, when Chris's Nick Sundberg reference was to Nick Sundberg's Twitter argument with Robert Griffin over the CBA. And I read the whole thing, and it was immediately apparent to me that Robert Griffin did not know what he was talking about. Sundberg is the Redskins team rep, for those of you who don't know. And his argument, he said, I'm voted for it, and here's why I think you should too. For basically the reasons we just said. It's better benefits, everybody's making more money, the split got better, all that stuff. And Griffin said, we need to vote against it, and it's not fair, and this and that. And it was abundantly obvious he didn't know what he was talking about. And Robert Griffin, while he gets, a lot of grief from Redskins fans, he's a pretty smart guy. He's not a dummy. But he just doesn't understand it, and he hadn't read it, obviously. I think probably, the vast majority of players have not read this document, nor are they going to read this document. I think for most people, it's as simple as, are we going to get more money? And our health benefits going to get better? Yes, okay, vote yes. I think that's kind of where most people are. And I do think the Russell Wilsons of the world are being selfish about it. Could they hold out for more money? Sure, but for God's sakes, think about your team a little bit. But I think the media part is the interesting part to me. Now the media contracts expire in 2021, so the NFL is a year ahead, as Chris said, of the CBA, which expires at the end of this coming season, and then 2 years ahead on the media. And so what the idea here is they want to get labor peace settled, and so you don't have a strike, and you have either bad games or no games going into year one of a new media contract. That's kind of the idea here. So this is why the NFL wants to get it done. This is why they also put the gun to the head of the union and said, "Listen, sign this now, or things are going to get dramatically worse." Because they want this done, they want it over with, and they want to move on to making billions for everybody else. And sort of the master plan here is get labor peace and get bigger TV deals as a result of it. So you can argue with us now about a percentage point here or there, or you can make much more overall from a vastly wider media pie. I think that's kind of the choice here. And again, I think most of the players lack this perspective.
And we've seen, the NFL's king, the NFL's dominant. It had a bounce back, but we've also seen chinks in the armor over the last 3 or 4 years. For whatever reasons you want to attest it to, that doesn't really matter. And we have a vastly, fluid media landscape. That's undeniable. So, can they recover from a labor shortage? I mean, and I mean recover like exist. I mean recover like get to the same level of TV contracts, to be the same level of dominance in the culture and in sports business. So when you're talking about mere percentage point dips, meaning millions if not billions of dollars, then anything that's catastrophic is just welcoming in too much chaos.
Yeah, look what happened when Major League Baseball went on strike in, was it 94? It destroyed their fan base for years. It took them years to recover in popularity. I was one of them. I didn't watch baseball for a couple years as a result of that because I just got sick to death of all of it. And it took me a while to sort of get back to it. It took Mark McGwire shooting up steroids really and hitting a bunch of home runs to kind of get baseball back. And now they're fine. And by the way, Major League Baseball, the last 2 CBAs that they've had have been done quietly, off the books, off the record, and done and signed. And like the NBA is doing. This is the way forward. I can understand going back to like 1982, when the finances are totally different. But nowadays, it's to everybody's advantage to not have anybody go on strike. You want to keep the train rolling. It's all about the money. And I don't think the NFL management's really being unfair about any of this. To me, yes, it's a partnership. But at the end of the day, the owners own this whole business. They deserve to, at a very minimum, make as much money, if not more, than the players, sort of from an equity standpoint. I don't have a problem with the split being 51.5 to 48.5%. I don't think that's totally inequitable. And yeah, if you're going to fight over a percentage point, a point and a half to get it to 50-50 and lose billions in the process, you're gonna lose by winning at the end of the day. So I would definitely vote yes. If any players listen to this, vote yes. It's better just get it done. You're going to get raises. You're going to get better health care. You're going to get better benefits. And if anybody has ever looked at this, I don't know if you've ever looked at it, Chris. NFL players have amazing benefits. Like any normal, real person, working man, working woman would kill to have the benefits they have. They have unbelievable benefits. So it's a great thing and it's a lucky thing. Don't shoot yourselves in the foot, please. Sign it.
And I don't think they are going to. So, and like I firmly believe that, by the time we hit the draft, it'll just be, how great is this? We have labor peace. We have a way forward. And to everybody's credit, and there's always, these things are never completely clean, and we've gone through much worse versions of this in all sports and the NFL. If they get through this a year ahead of time, and like I said, by the draft, we've got a signed CBA, and that's in the books, that's a pretty huge win for all involved.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing they're not going to really get is the lifetime health care. And I'm not saying they shouldn't ask for it. They should ask for it. They should try to negotiate for it. Just understand that's never going to happen. Because if you start adding up the costs, it's astronomical, even by NFL standards. So they use that as leverage to get a better benefit package and better health care. That's fine. But if that's the only thing people are holding out for, it ain't worth it. Because it would bankrupt the NFL eventually doing that.
So we will see. There will be a vote. I think it's the 16th. Am I right about the deadline for ballots?
Oh gosh, I don't know.
I think it's something like that. I might be off by a day or two, but
Yeah.
I think it's something in that neighborhood. So, and I'm not exactly sure of the process from there, but
But it's holding up a whole bunch of contracts.
yeah, for sure.
Big name contracts are being held up because of this team strategies dealing with the salary cap are being held up because of this. And just as an example, the Dallas Cowboys are in a bind, over it because what they want to do is franchise tag Dak Prescott and Amari Cooper. They can do it right now, but one of them's going to get yanked away as soon as this thing is signed. They really need some stability. The Redskins, with Brandon Scherf, we're a Redskins-based show. They want stability and they want to know the number. And they want to know the rules so they can get Scherf signed, just as an example. And every team has got some of those issues like that. But the Cowboys in particular are in a humongous bind because of this. And that's why you don't see any progress with the contracts for Dak Prescott and Amari Cooper. It's explicitly for this reason. So everybody wants to get this done.
Yeah, I was just listening to a Patriots beat writer on a podcast that was talking about how the Patriots are already using this as a shield for why they don't know what they're doing with Tom Brady yet.
What do you think's going to happen there?
I don't know if I have a good take. I don't think it's necessarily the smartest thing by any stretch, but I have a feeling he's going to be playing somewhere else next year.
I do too. If I were the Patriots, I'd let him walk. The fans would hate it, but the dude he looked washed last year, I thought, by his standards, and he's 43. Yes, I think the Patriots' run of good luck, which, by the way, the fans are just obnoxious about up there. They're so entitled. I still can't stand Boston fans. But regardless, I think it truly was kind of it's a chicken, it's a chicken and an egg argument. Is it Brady or Belichick? I think it's actually both of them. It's what caused the magic to happen. But at the end of the day, if Brady is old, it's not going to happen for him anymore, and you might as well move on and find a new quarterback.
I think
I'd let him walk.
If you're both of them, right? Which, first of all, part of it is that everybody's legacy is intact, right? So, nothing's going to diminish that, including the fans. People will gnash their teeth, but you have an armor of 8 Super Bowl championships or whatever it is, ridiculous thing it is, and they'll be fine. And in 3 years, they'll have a giant Tom Brady day or whatever. Everything will be fine, right? So. But what I think probably is a big motivator is that for both Brady and Belichick now, their legacies are so intertwined that they both are probably motivated, even like Brady even pulling off like a Joe Montana, right? Everyone forgets Joe Montana took the Chiefs to the AFC Championship game.
Right.
So even if Brady pulls that level of something off, it's literally the only thing in his legacy he's left to do. Same thing for Bill Belichick. If he wins a Super Bowl or continues Patriots dominance with a new quarterback over the next 5 years, like, not that their legacies need cementing, but it is the final piece in like their almost untouchability.
Kind of, yeah, I think to a certain extent. I also think neither one of them is going to do it without the other.
Oh, I think that's probably very possible. Sure, but that's what their motivation is.
Yeah, and there's a lot of ego. You got to remember there's a lot of ego with some of these players, and Brady and Belichick included. So yeah, I think that's part of it. I just wouldn't spend $30+ million on a dude who's 43 years old, no matter who he is. That's my part of it.
And this might be an unintentional transition, but Manning is actually both Mannings for that matter, but what happened to them in like their last season? I mean, obviously much different outcome. One's Super Bowl champion, another is going to miss the playoffs. But people have that visual in their head, right? And Phillip Rivers is, like I think almost like you could see it last year with Phillip Rivers too. I mean, yeah, sports medicine, blah 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 blah. You still talking about guys pushing 45 trying to play at a high caliber in the National Football League. I mean, if you just read that statement on a piece of paper, you would say that's insane.
Yeah, it is a smooth transition, Chris. I like that because we're headed into our next story, which is about the changes in the NFL booth. But don't forget, also Peyton Manning had a steroids issue that got covered up. I think we do this story.
Yeah, we talked about it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if everybody forgets,
brown package at the door.
Yeah, that had his wife's name on it and all that, and so the implication was that there's strong evidence that Peyton was on some sort of illegal, whether it was human growth hormone or something else. There was a strong implication that what really happened was Peyton got caught. The NFL told him, retire and we won't make an issue of it because it's not good for us either. And so he did. I mean, that's the if you read the tea leaves, that's probably what happened. And of course, Peyton's about to fall into a much better gig for him.
That's right. So if the rumors are true, if the momentum is real, we probably get Peyton Manning in the ESPN Monday Night Football color commentary slot, with looking at the tune of about $20 million a year salary, which I'm sure the only goal is eclipsing Tony Romo's recent $17 million a year deal with CBS. So we have entered the color commentary wars in terms of salaries.
Is it really worth it? This is what's been going through my head. And I think Peyton would be a great analyst. Tony Romo is, as much as it pains me to say it. I get that. But, I mean, is it really financially worthwhile for the networks to pay this much money? Because to me, if you're going to pay Tony Romo and Peyton Manning $20 million and $17 million a year, because the rumor about Romo was, I think he was $18 million, and then Peyton is going to be $20. That was, I think, is where we are. But to make it financially worthwhile, you have to draw in more viewers as a result. You have to draw in 18 million worth of more viewers, right? And so you have to convince your advertisers to pay more because you've got these two guys in the booth that's gonna draw a bigger audience. Maybe it's the issues are more than just financial and it's respect and all of that. But at some point, I think enough may be enough with these booth salaries, because how is the network really going to make more money with those two in the booth? That's what's going through my head.
Yeah, I mean that's a easy case to make, or you like just the numbers are that eye popping where you have to ask that question. I just figured, and I don't mean necessarily this as a derision or a compliment, but these people know what they're doing, right? So I assume if this is what they're willing to pay, they've got the calculus down where it makes sense. I mean, right, it might not be pure dollars and cents, but whatever holistic view they're looking at to legitimize these salaries, they probably have it figured out to be to their benefit. And they're two different cases, right? So one's a maintenance case. One, Tony Romo's been a superstar. They wanted to keep him, so they're paying to maintain, basically. ESPN and Monday Night Football as a brand, as an institution, as a thing, is in a much different scenario, right? Because that thing has been on free fall and was a real stinker property for ESPN, for Disney basically. And who knows what Disney's plans are for live sports and integration going forward. They need a superstar, and they needed that brand to have a jolt of life. So I think they're much sort of different use cases where you could probably argue they probably overpaid Tony Romo a little bit because they're looking to maintain, and they probably in the end of, but maybe if it works, the end of the contract or in 3 to 4 years they might be underpaying Manning, because if he revitalizes that brand, and look, think of the promo around Monday Night Football with Peyton Manning. I mean, it's going to be a marketing push like we've never seen before. So it's really interesting, but I'm going to give the suits here the benefit of the doubt that they know what they can afford.
Yeah, I mean, certainly Monday Night Football's taken a step back. I mean, from the days of Al Michaels and Howard Cosell to Joe Tessitore and a dude who calls himself Booger. I mean, yeah, certainly, and the Booger Mobile and all that stuff. Certainly, absolutely. But I mean, to me, maybe it's just me. I don't watch games because of the booth guys. I watch a game because I want to watch that particular matchup. And so, it's like whether, it's Bucky Brooks or Tony Romo as the analyst, I don't really care. It's just an added benefit to me. And same with Monday Night Football. I mean, I'm not going to turn off or turn on a game based on who's in the booth ever. Maybe that's just me, but it's going to have no effect on me whatsoever.
It does have an effect on me, with the caveat that if there's an NFL game being broadcast and I'm somewhere near a television, either can pay attention or half pay attention or a third pay attention, it's going to be on. So there's that caveat, right? But and this pain, and I really detested Tony Romo as a quarterback, even above just being the Cowboys quarterback. He's amazing to listen to in the booth. I mean, he does greatly enhance my enjoyment of the game when he's doing it, and I have no doubt that Peyton Manning is going to be very similar for very similar reasons, and that there's an intellect about the game. I mean, too often the booths are so, which I think the current ESPN booth demonstrates, are so inane, so stupid that they actually detract. So I think.
But are you gonna not watch the game because of it?
Well, I might put it on mute, or I might choose something else, or But when I see that, because they're all marquee games, right? So if I see, like, if it's I will probably pay a little bit more attention because I like their analysis, and I like their analysis because it's smart, right? My intelligence isn't being attacked, and not just from like a conversational standpoint, but like you do understand the game better, and I think that brings a lot of value, and I think that's what Romo's, the Phil Simms of the world and these kind of folks that we had in these booths that just were like, repeating cliches and adding nothing, to someone that, actually predicts what the play is going to be, explains it, actually, acts as a teacher about the game, I think is a real value add. Now, I think, yes, I agree, it's at the margins, but I do think as these networks battle for more eyeballs across different platforms, that they see that bringing in a little bit of value, and you're talking about value at maybe 1 or 2 percentage points. That's a big deal.
Yeah. Now, we don't know what the finances of Monday Night Football are as a property either. This may be that paying another $10 million a year to go from Booger McFarland to Peyton Manning may be nothing to them. And so me making a big deal out of it might not be fair, because if it's making a ton of money as it is, another 10 million here or there might just be totally irrelevant. And so, we don't know, and it's not really public. We don't really know. There's not any data that I've ever seen as of that. So I tend to think that paying Peyton to go to Monday Night Football may be a smarter thing than overpaying Tony Romo. And I agree with you about Tony Romo's analysis, much as it pains me to say it, because like you, I hated Tony Romo as a player. He's really good, and he really adds to the viewing experience by when he's able to explain those plays so clearly, when he's able to say, oh, this is what's coming, and he's usually right. I totally agree with you in that. But I have to think that Monday Night Football as an intellectual property is much more valuable than a Sunday afternoon game.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and so it seems to me to maybe make more sense to pay Peyton more than it would to overpay Romo, unless you're going to make Romo, you're going to be NBC and do Thursday Night Football. Yeah, then put Romo in the booth maybe. But without knowing the numbers, it's hard to tell, and maybe I should just be quiet and accept it.
Well, it's a lot of money. So, I mean, it sort of doesn't pass the eyeball test when you first hear the numbers being reported.
I just say, but at the end of the day, it's like, are you going to get 18 million million worth of more viewers by putting those two in the booth? Probably not. What you're going to do is enhance the reputation of the shows.
Yes, I mean, and
More
they were
so
getting,
than anything.
for the last 2 years of Monday Night Football, I mean, the Tuesday conversation is how bad the Monday Night Football booth is, right? So, like, even just getting out of that press cycle is probably worth something to them.
Yeah. Well, and because like Jason Witten truly was terrible at it.
Yeah.
He was just bad.
Right. Booger McFarlane could move to CBS and be on the second or third team on a Sunday afternoon, and you'd be fine.
Yeah, he was fine. He was fine, but everybody laughed at him over that Booger Mobile thing, which was absurd.
Yeah.
It looked absurd. It was absurd. It added nothing. Do you have the Al Michaels being traded story in
yeah. So and the other thing is
that.
they're not gonna pair Peyton Manning with Joe Tessitore. So the rumors are that you need a strong play-by-play guy, and you're gonna need to invest in that too if you're investing this much money in your color man. So there's rumors that Al Michaels will be traded from NBC to ESPN, which would be the second time in Al Michaels' career he's actually been traded, interestingly enough. The last time from ABC/Disney to NBC in the move to the Sunday Night Football booth. This is actually where I question the logic. Not that you need to keep Joe Tessitore. Believe me, that's not what I'm advocating for. I actually think he was the worst thing in the booth over the last 2 years, and there's a lot of responsibility in that position that he just did not take on. But do we really need an very, very old Al Michaels? Is he worth pairing with someone like Peyton Manning? That seems like the overreach to me, rather than just, looking and finding either younger established talent or even, grooming someone that is going to have the same, I don't know. Peyton is still young in the context of Al Michaels. And I think, who is it? It's Jim Nantz and Tony Romo, right?
Yeah, Jim Nantz and Tony Romo.
Yeah, Jim Nantz. I mean, he's a young man, obviously, but it's still different than Al Michaels. So that, I find, that seems to me to be the mistake if they do that.
Okay. Al Michaels, born in November 12, 1944, so he's about to be 76 years old. He will be 76 years old by the time the season ends. I think he's more of a name.
Yeah.
Than anything. Everybody knows who Al Michaels is. And so, the problem with, they're not going to trade, Vance or Jim Nantz, for example, because he does a lot of other things. He's not just a football guy. He does golf.
Yeah, he's their main anchor, basically.
Yeah, so you're not going to be able to trade for him. And so the question, I guess, is what other name can you get? Well, Al Michaels is a venerable name, Monday Night Football name, too. He did it for decades, right?
Yeah.
20 years. And so I guess the theory is if Al is healthy and can commit to, absent something awful happening, he can commit to 5 or 6 years. There's no reason why he can't do it. The Dodgers' old play-by-play man. Oh God,
Vin Scully.
Thank you. Vin Scully was that old. When he retired, and Vin at the end of it all declined to do the travel games. But he was fine in the booth. And Monday Night Football's once a week. Like the Redskins have been through this. Like for you Redskins fans, what we remember. When Sam Huff and Sonny Jurgensen were in the booth and they got old and it sounded bad and it sounded like they'd kind of lost their fastball and it was time to go and respectfully. But if Al Michaels isn't at that stage, fine. I'm fine with it. I don't know who else they would really pair Peyton. Who's the other play-by-play superstar?
Yeah,
that's a name.
Yeah, there aren't many, and so that's probably part of their calculus. And yes,
Nantz would be one. Would be one.
Oh yeah, but he's not.
They're just not. No.
Yeah, that's not.
And by the way, from a legal perspective, when they say they're trading Al Michaels, what they mean is Al Michaels is a contract. with NBC. And so what NBC is going to assign the contract to ABC in exchange for payment of whatever the terms are. That's when they say traded, that's what they mean.
Yeah, it just I love the idea of everybody in the sports business universe being tradable. I just think that's just fun.
It's kind of funny. It's like, NBC isn't going to get a first round draft pick. It's just money, and they're going to assign the contract and period. I think it's a good idea from kind of a macro perspective. You're going to bring Peyton Manning in, pair him with the superstar, and who better is an ABC Monday Night Football superstar than Al Michaels?
No, yeah, I get it from that standpoint. I just think he's probably going to be. I don't know if it'll work once they're in there. I understand the motivation, and I do actually think it'll happen. Also, remember for the ancient Al Michaels, wouldn't this probably gets more money, or at least similar money, and he works less, right? Because doesn't they do sometimes 2 games a week, that NBC team? Because they do some of the Thursday night games too, don't they?
Yeah, yeah.
So he might be for old Al. It might be the same, if not a little bit more money for less work. So that's from a worker's perspective, that's always the goal.
Yeah. So I think it's a good move. It's again, financially. I mean, all this money may be a drop in the bucket for Monday Night Football. I don't know, but if nothing else, it'll create a massive amount of buzz. Here that's the goal. Get it back to respectability and buzz.
And you can see the motivation for Manning and ESPN. One, Manning has been pretty clear he wasn't joining a booth until he wasn't going to be put into a position of criticizing his brother.
By the way, I looked this up because Chris mentioned this off the air. The original trade I have in front of me. Unbelievable. So Al Michaels was, quote, traded in 2006 to NBC when NBC sold the cable rights, sold the rights to something called Oswald the Lucky Rabbit, a cartoon character developed by Walt Disney itself. And so the idea here is ABC/Disney wanted to get a hold of whatever Oswald the Lucky Rabbit is, and so they handed over Al Michaels. So Al Michaels truly got traded for a cartoon.
Yeah, just an IP protection scheme.
Yeah, which is just really, really funny. And NBC can't use Oswald the Rabbit, and so I think that's funny. But look, it'll improve. The money part of it isn't the fans' concern. It'll improve the product. It'll make Monday Night Football much more of a thing again. Peyton Manning's kind of an old soul himself, to a certain extent. So I think he'll work well with Al Michaels.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll be good. And I'm a big Peyton Manning fan.
He's brilliant when it comes to football. Yeah. He's brilliant.
And so I was just saying that what most people said,
he can do it live when he's a quarterback.
Yeah, I
think he can probably diagnose plays sitting in a booth with binoculars or whatever.
For sure. No, it'll be fantastic. And ESPN, I think he told him, listen, I'm not joining a booth till my brother's out of the league. So that was a big domino to fall. And ESPN was smart. They had him doing that analytics show, a little bit. They've been bringing him along. He's been a little bit in kind of an extended spring training. And I imagine if this all comes out, it may take a year or two, but I imagine you'll get Peyton Manning, there might be a Disney Plus exclusive breakdown midweek on Wednesdays or something. They'll get more content out of Peyton Manning than just the broadcast. And the other thing is, the league was not servicing Monday Night Football with good games. And having a, disaster in the booth does not help. You don't think the NFL is going to be looking to see what it schedules on Monday night in a little different way with Peyton Manning there?
Yeah, I think it's okay to put the Browns and the Jaguars on when you've got Booger and Joe, but I don't think you want to waste, Peyton and Al Michaels on, the Bengals and the Dolphins or somebody, So yeah, I mean, maybe so, but I mean, scheduling is a very hard calculus problem, and so there are limitations, and there's rules about how many times teams can appear on what night and whatnot, so it can't always be the Cowboys and the Patriots. But yeah, I think you might see a bigger, a more concerted effort to make the games better, certainly, because that's better for the NFL too.
Yeah, totally.
When the story is God, what a dud, that's not good for anybody. You want the story to be what a great game and look how good Peyton Manning was. That's what you want to hear.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. All right, so we'll move on from that. It'll be interesting to see over the next couple weeks. The NFL, if they wrap up labor, they have a good offseason. They got superstars coming to their broadcast packaging. Could shape up to be a pretty good stretch here for the NFL.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely.
But will anyone be in seats watching games in early September is our next topic. And as coronavirus mania, whatever you want to classify it as, spreads, the very real possibility that large communal gatherings are going to diminish here, at least in the short, maybe midterm, have sports leagues looking right in the face of... which has already happened in soccer games in Europe, I believe. Games being played to empty stadiums and what the sort of real long knockdown of financial effects that would have. I mean, it's obviously just on the owners and the stadiums, etc., but there's all kinds of downfield financial implications there with no people in stadiums. So, I don't know. Are we going to see... I think the best way to look at this, are we going to see NBA, NHL playoff games with no fans? Or April opening month baseball games with no fans. That's what's in front of us.
Yeah, I think that these major corporations need to be seen as taking it seriously, and they should. And I'm not trying to be facetious about it, but I think everybody needs to relax, generally speaking, about coronavirus. The flu kills a lot more people every year. I think more people have been killed on the highways of Texas this week in this state alone than have been killed in the United States by coronavirus. So this is not like the Black Plague here, where it's wiping out all of Europe. This is a virus that's spreading, and we need to take precautions. But I think businesses sort of need to be seen as taking it more seriously. And the reason why I'm looking at my phone here, Chris, is that there's a story on Pro Basketball Talk from this morning that says the NBA sent a memo out recently in the past few days, I guess, that they have until, quote, Tuesday to develop a plan to limit the number of team and arena staff who interact with players as a part of their coronavirus response strategies. And they have told the teams, it continues in this article, to think about how to do games without media and fans in the arena if possible. So the NBA is thinking about it. They're not doing it yet, but they're thinking about it. Major League Baseball has apparently told teams to limit autograph sessions. We're right in the middle of spring training right now. Limit autograph sessions, not allow fans to shake hands. They've recommended fist bumping or high fives. Excuse me. And none of that's... all that's fine. It's decent precautions. I don't think we're ever going to get to the point where we need to have the NBA Finals, played in an empty arena. I think that's not good for anybody. I don't think it's necessary. This virus is not spreading to that degree. It's killed 11 old people, okay? And that's tragic and it's awful, but this is not wiping out thousands of healthy people, and I don't think it's going to get to the point where anybody needs to go through that. Call me cynical, but that's the way I see it.
That's cynical, but
I can't get too wrapped up around the axle about stuff like this.
I think there's a couple things. One, the latest information coming out of China was that severe social isolation actually does work. So that's an interesting. So if it moves to strategically containing and stopping it, that where it broke out faster and more, they are seeing where that actually did significantly curtail its spread. So some of it is like
China
how much of it is
lying, but
what?
Yeah. You're assuming China isn't lying,
right? But there's some of these are reports from Independent Health as well. But yes, but So there'll be an increased pressure for that. So that is a piece of this too. So it's not just don't get it. It's let's cut it off at the head. So that'll be part of the narrative. And yeah, the fact that anyone who's got large gatherings has got contingency plans, which is what that NBA memo says, right? So they're already
it's contingency
and risk reduction plans are already well underway. So don't kid yourself there that's not happening, because it is.
But the CDC has not recommended canceling large gatherings.
No, and so not yet. And this, in my world, which is a sort of nexus of tech, entertainment industry, and activism, it's been brutal. I mean, South by Southwest, Mobile World Congress.
Tell people what South by Southwest is for those who
South by Southwest is what is now started as music, but is now music, film, tech, education, and entrepreneurship. Giant mega festival. It is in Austin, Texas. It's conservatively worth $350 million in revenue to Texas, which, they actually squashed it down to 1 week. It used to fall over a month. This year they actually kind of made them all overlap a little bit more, probably just to give Austin a bit of a break. But the financial implications of no South by Southwest are massive. For the town, for the city, for local businesses, for the bands and the movies, for product releases, the gaming industry. GDC is a major independent game developer, one that's been canceled. Mobile World Congress is huge. It's in Barcelona every year. So, my pocket...
Well, Europe has another matter. I mean, because they are having a legitimate outbreak in Italy at a minimum.
Yes, I mean...
That's another... When my being facetious about it is limited to the effect on the United States at this point. Italy's a totally different story. I mean,
they're shutting down a city.
Yeah, right.
So it's super. So I'm maybe a little bit more close to it, but the slew of cancellations and then the knockdown effects there are just massive. So everything from those giant things being, but 3 of those cancellations directly influence negatively my billable hours for my company, because we would have had presence at them and we would have been paid for it. So, which I'm not whining. I'm just saying, that's how far reaching the network effects of these cancellations will have.
I mean, certainly there's financial implications. I think a lot of this, though, is just to prevent public fear more so than it is actually stopping anything. Canceling South by Southwest is a pretty major deal.
Huge.
It really is.
And they held off. I mean, they really were. My wife was set to go, as well as my business partner. So, we on all fronts of my personal life, we're watching it almost by hour to hour, and they were steadfast. And then they just couldn't. The big players start to drop, which is what happened. First your Twitters, your Facebooks of the world, and then your 3 major music companies, Warner, Sony, and Universal, all pulled their staff. So once stuff starts to happen, it's just dominoes.
Yeah, and again, I don't know. I mean, maybe it's just me being a jerk, but I think a lot of it is more precautionary out of an attempt to not panic the public more than anything else. I guess that's the way I see it. I think look, I mean, there's no country in the world better at stopping outbreak of disease than the United States. We have the resources, we have, the staffs to do this. The CDC is serious and they're good. And this thing we will get a handle on it. And I don't think, at the end of the day, I think you're going to see the NBA Finals go on and Major League Baseball go on.
Well, whether they go on with an empty house or not.
Go on as normal. That's what I'm saying. It's going to go on no matter what. But I just don't think it's going to be as big a problem. I think this is the same. This is brought to you by the same people who said Y2K was going to ruin the world's economy. That's kind of the way I see it. I think it's sort of unnecessary fear stoking.
The flip side of that, even in the Y2K example, although I think local blizzards and hurricanes, where things are prevalent, it's one of those things, and this is where there's that sort of no-win scenario, right? you can make a very good case, and technologists do, that Y2K could have actually been a really serious problem. It's just it was taken seriously for enough time before to prepare and mitigate. And so you see something like I'll never forget, in New York City we had a hurricane come through that just missed us. This is probably, I'm too old to remember years. It was 2 years before Superstorm Sandy. That storm ended up cutting west and like really destroying parts of Vermont and Massachusetts way inland, which was strange in and of itself. And that sense of security meant no one was ready for Sandy. And so these are one of those things that it's just like, if you over prepare and nothing happens, and it's a big laugh, right? And if you under prepare and it has damaging, so that's the dilemma of these kind of things in general, which is, I think, is where, sort of everyone's sort of caught in that crossfire right now.
Yeah, I just have faith in the ability of the United States experts in particular to get a handle on it. That's all. And I don't want to say, I'm the kind that I do not like to see daily life interrupted for things. I do not want to be defeated by terrorism, by hurricanes, by health scares. I do not want life to change. Because I do not want to be defeated by those things. And that's just kind of the way I've always looked at it. And I just don't see this to be as enough of a problem. I see, quite honestly, the flu is a bigger problem, much bigger problem, than this coronavirus. The flu kills more people every year. It spreads more. This is just sort of the disease du jour, if you will. And I think it'll be fine. So I don't think, from an economic standpoint, I don't think it's worthwhile to start canceling things like baseball games, or at least the fan part of baseball games and football games, and et cetera, et cetera. I just, let's go on. Everybody wash their hands, take precautions. It's not the time to travel overseas, but just take reasonable precautions and go on, and I think everything will be fine.
Maybe not. Neither one of us are health experts, but what we...
Oh, I am. I'm a health expert.
Of course you are, Steve. But don't kid yourself. This is what to do, what not to do, what the contingencies are we not, is going to enter the 24-hour sports conversation. If it is already, but I think between now and our next show, it'll be a dominant narrative in sports.
Maybe. Yeah. Maybe so. Unless something, happens health-wise in which, the world can collectively say this is something stemming the tide.
Right. And, King James already weighed in, so...
Oh, I didn't see that. What did he say?
Oh, yeah, he said he's not playing to empty stadiums. Which I don't know how he could get away with saying that. Like, they're telling him to play, he's going to have to play, right? But he already said, I'm not playing to empty stadiums.
You know what? This is a bit of a... This is off topic, but I gotta say that the way... I've never been a big LeBron James fan. Everybody knows I'm a Laker fan. And I wasn't wild about him coming to LA. But I gotta say, the way that he has handled the death of Kobe Bryant this year has finally made me a fan.
And it has nothing to do with him being very good this year?
No, it really hasn't. It's seeing how he led the team through the crisis of Kobe's death made me really feel like for the first time he felt like he deserved to be a Laker. Honestly, it had really nothing to do with his on-court performance. So I respect him a lot more for kind of leading the team through what they've been through this past 2 months. That has nothing to do with anything, but I did want to get that out there because I respect him a lot more now than I did before. But in terms of, you're right, though. I mean, LeBron is going to play wherever the NBA tells him to play. Yeah. He doesn't have a choice. He can spout off all he wants. I'm not playing in front of no crowd. Well, yeah, you might, unless you want to be in breach of contract,
It'd be super.
But I do respect LeBron a lot more than I did even 2 months ago.
Yeah, my point for bringing it up is just that, like when LeBron James says what he's, even if it doesn't have much teeth, what he's going to do or not going to do, it means it's entered the A-level conversation.
The owner of the Houston Rockets said the same thing. Something similar to that. He said it's not good for anybody to play in front of empty stadiums. So I think Fertitta is in that same story. I don't have it in front of me, but in that same story, claimed that it would be better to just postpone games rather than play them in front of no crowd. So that's an option too. I mean, so the second thing would be just postpone games until the crisis is over. That would be the other thing to do.
Yeah, for sure. Well, these are the things that will be talked about over the next couple weeks. Even if status quo with the disease remains as it is. Obviously, if is better contained or skyrockets, the conversation.
Well, also remember
changes.
this much though. I'm just kidding. I'm not a. Well, yeah, I am a medical. I'm an expert in everything. Don't you guys know this? But the reason why the flu comes around about in September-ish is that things like virus and bacteria survive better in the cold, and the summer heat tends to kill them. And this is why the flu dies down, when we come out of wintertime every year. And I think the real medical experts, nobody knows more than me, but the real medical experts who understand this stuff on a daily basis will tell you that this coronavirus outbreak is probably going to be naturally limited by the weather here coming up too. So it may go away just to, as a matter of course, and come back again next winter.
Yeah, right. So we talked about this in context of we wouldn't watch NFL games at empty stadiums.
Yeah, imagine that. Of course, the we Redskins fans are used to
Yeah.
that. It might be more of an advantage to playing in front of an empty stadium instead of the stadium full of the opposing team.
Yeah, that's true. Right, it'd be a good reset for them.
It would be actually getting better.
All right, that probably that level of whimsy probably means we are at the tail end of this episode of It's Just Business. So, Steve, why don't you give the promo to all things Hogsty Network?
Okay. Seasons of Discontent, which is Rick Snyder's look on all things Washington sports and life, is on a hiatus this week. Rick has got another project, which I don't know if I can say it out loud. I won't say it. I'm not sure he wants me to say it. But he's working on something else right now, so he couldn't do the show. But that will be back next week. The Hogsty, we've got a bunch of great guests. We have guests lined up all the way through the draft week on the Hogsty. So say every single week we have somebody new. We're doing this for a reason. But so it's a great time on the Hogs side, and we've got all of the great written content we usually have. We've got free agency previews, draft previews, everything you want to know about the world of football.
Well, there you go. So would you take 2 third-round draft picks for Trent Williams from the Jets?
No. 2 third round? No. I think they need to get... I always thought a second round was probably where they're going to end up. So I think the demand probably needs to be first round to compromise down to a second rounder. I never thought that they... I'll take it if they get a first rounder, but I don't think that's realistic. I think second rounder is the sweet spot.
I think they could have gotten a first rounder if Bruce Allen wasn't a moron. But I agree with your assessment for right now.
Well, they never got... We've been through this. The Redskins never actually got a first round offer. In spite of the rumors, that never happened last year.
I just think if he would have been aggressive and open, then you would have seen... You probably would have seen one materialize. I think there's enough teams that were like, if you keep telling me there's nothing that's going to talk to me, that's going to move me, then people are going to stop lobbing stuff at you. Regardless, it's undeniable they would have gotten a better deal last fall than this fall.
I don't know if I agree with that. I've repeatedly said I think it's still Trent Williams. At the end of the day, he's still Trent Williams. He's still going to get a good offer. Yeah. But this is a whole nother show.
Yeah, and I basically agree, and I would hope it's a second rounder. I just think that the 2 third rounders from the Jets is my dark horse candidate for what's going to happen.
The Jets are a realistic possibility.
All right, well, tune into the Hogsty for more discussion about all things Trent Williams, which I at least hope comes to a close soon because I'm bored of that story. All right, so we will see you in 2 weeks. See you then.